Hey guys, Mrs. Flanagan here. Today we are going to talk about operations with polynomials. Polynomial expressions can be added, subtracted, and multiplied. The most important thing to remember is to multiply the number outside the parentheses to every term inside the parentheses. That's including a negative if there is one. To help with that, with all of these problems, you want to find the parentheses first, this direction of the parentheses, and distribute the term that comes right before that parentheses. That includes the negative sign. With this example, the parentheses, the left open parentheses is here, and we want to find that first, and then distribute what comes right before that, and including that negative. So this negative 9 needs to be distributed to the 9n. Distribution means multiply, so we're taking that negative 9 and multiplying it by the 9n. But then you also have to take the negative 9 and distribute it to the 8. So again, we're taking that negative 9 and multiplying it by the 8. And negative 9 times 9n is negative 81n. And then negative 9 times 8 is negative 72. And that is the final answer. For this example, find the parentheses, the left open parentheses, first, and take the term that comes right before it and distribute it through. And so the 8x is distributed to the 1. And distribution means multiply, so 8x times 1. And then the 8x is distributed to the negative 6x, right? Subtraction can sometimes be thought of as negative, so this is actually a negative 6x. And so we have a positive 8x. This, because there's no sign in front, it's a positive, so that's why we include that positive 8x. And that's being multiplied by the negative 6x. And so now 8x times 1 is 8x. And 8x times negative 6x is negative 48. Remember, we just talked about properties of our powers. When we're multiplying by the same letters, we add our powers. If there's not a power written, that power is 1. And so we're adding those powers. So this becomes x to the 1 plus 1. And now this becomes 8x minus 48. X to the 1 plus 1 is squared. And one of the directions, it says to write in standard form. So that's the largest exponent first. Another name for exponent is power. And the largest power in this example is 2. And so we actually want to rewrite this with the negative 48x squared first, and then the positive 8x next. So that is the final answer. For this example, find the left open parentheses and take the term that's in front of that and distribute through. The 7k squared is being distributed to the 8, so 7k squared multiplied by 8. The 7k squared is also being multiplied. It's a positive 7k squared. It's also being multiplied by that 8k. And then we have this plus 1 at the end. Notice that the 7k squared doesn't get distributed to that plus 1 because the plus 1 is not inside of our parentheses. The 7k squared only gets distributed to what's inside of our parentheses. And so now 7k squared times 8, 7 times 8 is 56, and that's k squared. And then 7k squared times 8k, so 7 times 8 again is 56. And now let's think about what our new power is going to be, right? This is a power of 2. If there's not a power written, that power is 1. And so when we're multiplying by the same letters, we add the powers. So this becomes 2 plus 1. And then we still have that plus 1. And this is equal to 56k squared plus 56k, 2 plus 1 is 3, so k cubed plus 1. And then don't forget, we need to write it in standard form. So the largest power needs to go first. And in this case, the largest power is our 3. And so the 56k cubed needs to be written first. And then the 56k squared is written next. And then we have our plus 1. For this example, find the parentheses first. So the left open parentheses is here. And then take the term that's in front of it, which is both the negative and the 6. Remember, you have to include the negative sign that's with it. So you take the term that's in front of our parentheses and distribute that through. So negative 6 times 9a. And then negative 6 times, so it's a negative 6, and we're multiplying it by that negative 4. And then don't forget this 4 that's at the very front. And now with order of operations, remember we have to multiply first. So multiply the negative 6 and the 9a together. Negative 6 times 9a is negative 54a. And then don't forget to bring down that 4 as well. And then again, we multiply first for order of operations. So negative 6 times negative 24 is a positive 24. So because it's a positive, include that plus. It's a positive 24. And now we need to combine like terms. The like terms in this case are the 4 and the 24. And write it in standard form. So for standard form, the negative 54a needs to go first because it has the letter. And now we have 4 plus 24 is 28. So negative 54a plus 28. This example has two parentheses that we need to look in front of so that we know what to distribute. And here the 5 is in front, so we need to distribute the 5 through. And this 5 distributed to the 3 becomes 5 times 3. The 5 distributed to the negative 7x, so it's a positive 5, and it's being distributed to the negative 7x. Now here, this subtract sign in front of the parentheses is actually a negative 1. And so yes, you need to take that negative 1 and distribute it through the parentheses. So it's a negative 1 being multiplied to 1, and then a negative 1 being multiplied by a negative 6x. And now this becomes 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times negative 7x. Remember, again, order of operations, you do all the multiplying first. Do all the multiplying first. So 5 times negative 7 is negative 35. And then we have the x. And then negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. And negative 1 times negative 6x is a positive 6x. And combining like terms, let's combine the x's first because we have to write in the standard form. So these x's go first. Negative 35 plus 6 is negative 29x. And then 15 minus 1 is positive 14. So negative 29x plus 14. All right, now we're looking at adding or subtracting. For this example, you can treat it just like what we were previously doing. You find the parentheses that are open this direction, and the number that's in front is a 1, and the number that's in front is a 1. There's not a number written, that number is really a 1. And now we can distribute this 1 through. 1 times 2n, and 1 times, it's a positive 1, so don't forget the plus, the positive 1. So 1 times negative 7. And then here we have a positive 1 again, so don't forget to put a positive 1. And we have 1 times 2n. And then we have a positive 1 again being multiplied by that 3. Order of operations says to do multiply first. So find all the multiplication and do all the multiplying first. 1 times 2n is 2n. 1 times negative 7 is negative 7. 1 times 2n is 2n. It's a positive 2n, so don't forget that plus to represent positive. And then 1 times 3 is 3, and it's a positive 3, so don't forget that plus. And now combining like terms, the 2n plus 2n is 4n. And the negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4. For example B, again, the very first thing you should do is find those parentheses and look at what's in front of the parentheses. If there's not a number written, the number is a 1. If there's not a number written, the number is a 1. And now we distribute this 1 through, and that gives us 1 times 5. And this is a positive 1, so don't forget to put the plus to represent the positive 1, times the negative 3m squared. And here, this is a negative 1, so don't forget to write the negative 1, and that's being distributed to the 6, or multiplying that by 6. And then again, it's a negative 1, so don't forget the negative 1, that's being multiplied by the negative 8m squared, right? This is a negative 8m squared. So now order of operations tells us to do all the multiplying first, so find all of the multiplying and do the multiplying. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times negative 3m squared is negative 3m squared. Negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. Negative 1 times negative 8m squared is a positive 8m squared. Our like terms start with the highest power first. The highest power is 2, and we have a negative 3m squared plus 8m squared. That gives us 5m squared. And then 5 minus 6 is negative 1. What I want you to do now is example C on your own. And once you're finished, come back to check the answer. Go ahead and pause the video now. The answer is 7p minus 2. If you did not get that correct, you can come chat with me about it next time in class. Go ahead and do example D and E on your own. Come back to the video to check your answer. Go ahead and pause the video now. Here is the answer for part D, and here's the answer for part E. If you got either of these wrong, you can come chat with me about it next time in class. And let's skip into example G together, and then I'll have you do example F on your own. For example G, again, let's identify the parentheses. Always start there first. And then the number in front of these parentheses is really a 1. And now when we distribute through, we have a 1 times 4. A 1 times, it's a positive 1, so don't forget the plus, times a negative 3x. And then here, this is a negative 1 times 2. A negative 1 times a negative x squared. And we have a negative 1 times a negative 2x. And so now multiplying everything, we have 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times negative 3x is negative 3x. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 1 times negative x squared is a positive x squared. Negative 1 times negative 2x is a positive 2x. Combining like terms, starting with the highest power. Our highest power is 2. There is no other power of 2, and so that is written first all by itself. The next highest power is our x's, so combine those. We have a negative 3x and a 2x. Negative 3x plus 2x is negative x. And then the other like terms are the 4 and the negative 2, which is a positive 2. And so that's x squared minus x plus 2. Go ahead now and do example F on your own. Come back to check your answer. Go ahead and pause the video now. And here is the answer. In real life, in order for a company to determine its profit, what they do is they take their revenue and subtract it by the cost. And so if a company sells a calculator for $12, the revenue is 12 times X, because depending on the number of calculators they sell, they multiply that by 12 to get their revenue. And then the cost then, if it costs them $7 per calculator to make, that's 7 times X, depending on the number of calculators they make. And if they have a fixed cost of $1,200 per month, so most often that's rent and paying for employees, then you have to add that 1,200 to the 7 times the X. So this is our revenue function, and this is our cost function. In order to find the profit, you have to take the revenue function, which we determined was the 12x, and subtract it from the cost function, which we determined was the 7x plus 1,200. So you're subtracting the entire cost function. So you need to have parentheses around that cost function. And now it becomes an equation that we have previously been working on. First, identify the parentheses, and the number that's in front of that parentheses, if nothing's written, is a 1. And so when we distribute this negative 1 through, we have a negative 1 times 7x, and we have a negative 1 times the 1,200. And then don't forget this 12x at the very front, bring that down. And so now this equals 12x, and negative 1 times 7x is negative 7x. And negative 1 times 1,200 is negative 1,200. And now let's combine like terms. 12x minus 7x is 5x. And then we still have that negative 1,200. So the profit function is 5x minus 1,200. And now if we want to determine what the profit is if the company sells 800 calculators, well, that 800 calculators is the x, right? X is our calculators. So we're going to replace that 800 and the x. So x instead will be 800. This becomes then 5 multiplied by x, which is 800, minus the 1,200. And 5 times 800 is 4,000. And we are subtracting 1,200. And 4,000 subtract 1,200 is 2,800. So the company would make $2,800 if they sell 800 calculators. All right, last we have multiplying polynomials. We need to remember the difference between addition and multiplication of these terms. So when adding, this is really saying if we have 1a plus 1a, so 1 apple plus 1 apple, how many apples do we have? Well, we have 2 apples. Here, when we're multiplying, that's a different thing. When we're multiplying by the same letters, you have to look at the powers. So remember, this is a power of 1, and that's a power of 1. And so we take the a and we add the powers. And so a to the power of 1 plus 1 becomes a squared. Here, again, we're multiplying, and so you need to look at the powers. So this is a power of 1, which means we have a to the power of 2 plus 1, and this becomes a cubed. Here, we have coefficients out in front. So the coefficient of 2 and the coefficient of 4, you multiply those like normal, they're normal numbers. So 2 times 4 is 8. And then we have our letters. So the a cubed and the a squared. When we're multiplying by the same letters, we have to add the powers. And so a to the 3 plus 2, this then equals 8, and then a to the 5th. All right, for multiplying then, it's like the distributive property twice. What that means is you have to take the 3x and multiply it by everything in that second set of parentheses. So the 3x has to be multiplied by everything in that second set of parentheses. The way to think about that visually is you're taking the 3x and multiplying it by the 2x plus 6. And then you're taking the plus 6, so the plus 6, and you're multiplying it by everything in that second set of parentheses. Now we distribute through, so this is equal to 3x times 2x, and 3x times 6, it's a positive 3x being multiplied by 6, And then we have the 6 being multiplied, it's a positive 6, so don't forget that plus 6, multiplied by 2x, and a positive 6 being multiplied by 6. Now let's multiply everything together. So 3x times 2x, right? It's the same thing here. You multiply the coefficients together, the 3 and the 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And then x times x is x squared. And 3x times 6 is 18x. And 6 times 2x is 12x. And 6 times 6 is 36. And now we need to combine like terms. Our like terms are the 18x and the 12x. And so now we have the 6x squared at the beginning. And 18x plus 12x is 30x. And then we have that 36. And so that is the final answer. All right, next example. So again, this 2v has to be multiplied by everything in that second set of parentheses. So the 2v is being multiplied by the 5v minus 4. And then this negative 4 also has to be multiplied by everything in that second set of parentheses. So the negative 4 is being multiplied by 5v minus 4. And now we distribute through, so 2v times 5v, 2v times 5v, and it's a positive 2v times negative 4, and then negative 4 times 5v, and negative 4 times negative 4. 2v times 5v is 10v squared. 2v times 4 is negative 8v. Negative 4 times 5v is negative 20v. And negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16. And now combining like terms, the negative 8v and the negative 20v. And so this is 10v squared. Negative 8 minus 20 is negative 28. And that's a v plus 16. And what I want you to do now is example C on your own and come back to check your answer. Go ahead and pause the video now. And here is the answer. For our next example, when there's a power of 2 on the outside with addition, that makes a huge difference. You have to go off of what the meaning of a power of 2 is. That means you're taking the 2x plus 1 and multiplying it by itself. And so really, this becomes 2x plus 1 being multiplied by 2x plus 1. So you have to write it out twice. If you don't write it out twice, you will end up getting this wrong. Go ahead and do this on your own and do F on your own as well, and then come back to check your answer. Go ahead and pause the video now. Here is the answer for part D, and here is the answer for part F. The biggest thing with part F is recognizing that when you do negative x times negative x, you have a negative times a negative, which is a positive, and x times x is x squared, because you have to take the powers of 1, right, and add the powers together, 1 plus 1, to get the, right, that's 1 plus 1 from these powers right here. All right, for example E, this negative on the outside right here, again, is really like a negative 1. And so what you want to do is first multiply the negative 1 through that first set of parentheses. And so we have negative 1 times y is negative y. And then we have negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. So that is that's our new first set of parentheses, the negative y plus 3. And then you still have the 2y plus 5. And now you can go ahead and multiply this. Go ahead and do that on your own. Go ahead and pause the video now. And the answer ends up being negative 2y squared plus y plus 15. And for our last example, very similar to what we've been doing, this 2x has to be multiplied by everything in that second set of parentheses. So 2x has to be multiplied by the x squared minus 2x plus 1. And then this negative 3 also has to be multiplied by everything in that second set of parentheses. So the negative 3 has to be multiplied by the x squared minus 2x plus 1. And now it becomes very similar to what we've already been doing. This 2x has to be multiplied to the x squared. And then this 2x has to be multiplied to the negative 2x. It's a positive 2x being multiplied by the negative 2x. And then that 2x also has to be multiplied to that positive 1. So it's a positive 2x being multiplied by 1. This negative 3 has to be multiplied by the x squared. And the negative 3 has to be multiplied by the negative 2x. And then, so negative 3 times negative 2x. And then negative 3 times 1. 2x times x squared is 2x cubed, because this really has a power of 1, and when multiplying by the same letters, you have to add the powers. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2x times negative 2x is negative 4x squared. Again, this has a power of 1, that has a power of 1, so you have to add the powers to get the 2. 2x times 1 is 2x, and then negative 3 times x squared is negative 3x squared. And negative 3 times negative 2x is a positive 6x. And negative 3 times 1 is a negative 3. Start with the highest power first. Our highest power is 3, and so that goes first. The next highest power is a power of 2 and a power of 2. And we have a negative 4x squared and a negative 3x squared. That gives us negative 7x squared. And then the next highest power is a power of 1 for these x's. So we have a positive 2x and a positive 6x for a positive 8x. And then we have that negative 3 left. So it's 2x cubed minus 7x squared plus 8x minus 3.